Right, good morning. Today's live match is back on the Shropshire Union canal at Pendeford, and this is the first qualifier for the CT paper final. It's 4 or 5 rounds. You've got to fish a minimum of 2 to qualify, and then on top of that you've got to finish top 20 in the match on any one of the qualifiers to make the final, which will be Octoberish this year, later on this year. So where I've drawn N but one peg next to Tony Walsh. Gives a wave, Walshy. N peg. There used to be a lot of chub there back in the day. Whether they're still there or not, I don't know. Well, peg, I like the look of it, but I don't know. We'll see. And to my left, I've got Martin. Martin, gives a wave. Martin Owen. There, look, blowing us a kiss. Now, there was an angler next to him, but he's decided not to fish. So I got N peg one side. I got an M peg one side of me, and then I got Martin on the other side of me. That's got an empty peg. So I'm up against it. But we'll see. Plus, the Tanara here. Look how close it is here. I've got nowhere to ship or anything. It's awful. But these things are sent to try us, and we'll have a go. Right, speak to you later. Oh, I shouldn't have left that back there, should I? It's going to get played up at some point,
I was going to say, well, he definitely will if I don't want yeah, if he gets a chance. Yeah.
Right, so the angler that drew this peg on the previous match, which was the second day of the Wolves AA 2-day spring festival, he fished for chub all day and he managed to catch just the one, which weighed £2. I can't be sitting spending all day fishing for a chub. That's not what I'm about. I like to catch fish and put fish in the net. So although I've plumbed up a line and fed for chub, I plan to fish for roach and skimmers. There's also a few pommies, silver bream along this length, so hopefully I can catch a few of them. So I fed a top 2+2 line with bread, an 11-metre line with bread, just a normal ball of liquidised bread on each line. On the short line I put a few casters in, not many, just a sprinkle of casters, and the far line I put some hemp in it with the plan to feed hemp over the top. Hemp can be a great bait on this canal. I fed an 11-metre down the track worm and caster line for one of those elusive chub, but I never planned to spend too much time on it. Now my main line of attack was going to be ground bait with squats and pinkies. So to my left at 11 metres, in probably 4.5 feet of water, which was quite deep, I fed 2 balls of ground bait. I fed a single ball at 13 metres and a single ball at 14.5 metres. Both of those were going up the shelf. The 13-metre line was probably about 2.5 to 3 feet deep, and the 14.5-metre line was around 18 inches deep. So still quite a bit of water, although it is a very clear canal. Even with boats along it, it doesn't seem to colour up or hold. Well, it does colour up, it just doesn't hold the colour for long. The ground bait mix was Sonia Bates Black and Sonia Bates Sweet Skimmer. Now when Sweet Skimmer came out, I don't know if it's been out for about 12 months or more, or something like that. I wasn't really a fan of it early doors, but that was probably because I was really happy with the ground baits I was using, which was Black Roach, Black and Black River. Now I've used the Sweet Skimmer a lot over this winter, mixed with F1 Dark when I've been fishing silvers matches on commercials, and I've really got to like Sweet Skimmer. Plus I know there's skimmers and pommies in the area around here. I thought I'd give it a try, feeding it with black, so I've mixed it 50-50, and I've got to say it's a lovely mix. It is a lovely mix. I don't need to add any river to it because it's quite a sticky mix anyway. I only ever use the river just to give the black and black roach an extra bind, but with the Sweet Skimmer don't really need to do that unless it's an area where there's a lot of movement in the water, like between locks and stuff like that. But this place, I don't think there's a lock for miles, so it doesn't really pull too hard. It's just a nice constant flow normally. So I've fed these 3 lines with ground bait, and I plan to feed over the top of them with squats. So I'd be able to spray squats over all those 3 lines. So like I'd be feeding the 13 and 14 half a metre line with overspray from my main feed, which would be at 11 metres. But I never plan to put too much squatting too early. I plan to just let the ground bait settle and see what happens from there.
No. He fell for it, Mark. Well, mind your language, please. You're on camera here. Oh, there's no room. Oh, no room. How about you? Sorry, just missed the bike straight away, are you? These logs are how he was, Mark.
So I started the match on the top kit +2
Hey?
on punch, 4mm punch. And I was quite surprised to get a bite pretty quick. First drop in, a roach of about 1.5 ounces. I wasn't going to risk swinging my first fish, so I reached for the net.
Oh,
Happy days.
he's ready to spawn, Heath. Full of nodules.
Happy days, off to a great start. Throughout the day I had to ship out above the water because there was a lot of debris on the top. It was quite a windy day, but where we were sitting was quite sheltered from the wind, which allowed a lot of debris to collect in the area. If I shipped out along the water, I ended up getting debris masking the hook. Next drop in, another fish. Slightly smaller this one. The lads either side of me are still struggling to catch. Neither of them have had a bite. Yet. I had to be quite careful where I place the rig in the water as well, as I put it on something.
Sorry?
This one's a slightly better stamp fish. Still the lads either side of me haven't caught nothing.
Yeah.
Getting off to a great start. This one's another roach. As you can see, I never had no room to put my landing net behind me either. I had to ship that along the towpath just to be able to get the net to my lap, so as I could reach in to get the fish out. Such an awkward peg to fish, as is a couple of pegs to my left as well. It's just a really narrow towpath. And the hedge behind you is really high as well, so it wouldn't be feasible to try and ship above it. It's no problem. I'd set everything out so as I could ship along the towpath. Another nice fish. This one's a pommy. 3-4 ounce. I'm already enjoying this match.
Going on here, Mark. I know. I've had 3 routes and a pommy. Sorry, mate. I'll be. Thank you. It's so awkward with it being so narrow, isn't it?
Next fish was a little roach. This gave me a signal that there ain't many bigger fish left there, so I refed this line with another ball of bread. And had a look over on my 11-metre line. Again shipping out above the water. I expected the 11-metre line to be quite good because it's out the way of anything. It's still got some depth there and it's out the way of any boat traffic or anything like that, any interference. So I expected it to be okay. And although there was odd fish there was a few fish to be caught. It wasn't brilliant. The fish were quite small and few and far between. They just didn't seem comfortable to be in that depth of water. I've struck here and missed a bite, and as I've picked it up through the water, I've picked a bit of debris up. And as I'm trying to bring it back, it's caught something else and ends up tangling the end of the rig, so it damaged the hook length. So that was a rig down. Well, a hook length down anyway. So instead of changing the hook length immediately, I picked up my worm rig because Martin to my left had started catching some small perch on maggots over the top of his worm line. So I thought it'd be time to give mine a try. I didn't start on the maggot. I cut a little segment of Dendrobina worm and went over it with that.
The worm. Maggot over the top.
Hoping I'd snare a chub.
Sorry? Yeah.
Unfortunately, I never had an indication on it.
Job.
And Tony's just hooked his first chub.
Right up, chub. First chub here, bar.
No bites on the worm for me. Quick look on the maggot over the top of the worm, and I had a couple of little perch.
Shipping's awful here.
So uncomfortable this is.
God's sake. It's just a mess.
Couldn't catch me one of those elusive chub though. My worm line was exactly the same depth as my short bread line, where I'd been feeding a few casters over the top, so I dropped it on that to see if I could snare anything there. And first drop in, I've had a little pommy. Followed up with a couple of perch. Only small ones. Caught me a few extra fish, but no signs of any chub for me. Tony was now on 3 fish. Running the maggots over the top of the worm and over the top of the bread. Caught me a couple of extra fish off each line. But none of the elusive chub for me. And Tony was now on 3. And they were big fish as well. And Martin had also had a decent skimmer. Tony was so selfish, keeping all those chub to himself. And all I can catch is little perch. Well, at least something's still going in the net, I suppose.
This is so awkward.
About an hour and a half into the match now, so it's time to have a look over the ground bait. I've gone in with a single fluoro pinky. This is a 0.3 rig in that 4.5 feet of water with a bulk and 3 droppers. And that's promising of have a bite straight away. I've got to try and ignore Tony because he'll probably go on and frame, if not win the match. I've just got to get my head down and hope that if he does frame, I can be in with a chance of a default section win. I never realised that I was the first peg in my section going to my right, which meant I had the end pegs either side of the narrows to contend with. I knew Tony was building a weight, but I hadn't got a clue what was going on the other end peg. But I was enjoying it because I was catching some fish. And there seemed to be a few fish sitting over the top of the ground bait. So happy days. I've got to try and ignore what Tony was doing. and you just enjoy the day. I was catching a nice mixture of fish, roach, skimmers and pommies, and half of them were a decent stamp as well. None of them were big fish, but they were good weight building fish, up to 4 and 5 ounces.
He's had a cormorant,
Great
so someone's
fishing.
have a go at him.
All on a single fluoro pinky.
Got a right chunk out of him.
Now this was the first of 3 crossovers I had during the match, and I felt that that would be the end of the decent run on the pinky, but I refed it with a ball anyway and hoped they'd stay. The boat slowed down because there's only enough room for one boat at a time in the narrows, so we had to wait for him to exit the narrows before he could go in. And that boat on the far side's gone straight over the top of where I was catching. Never mind. My main grain bait mix I keep in a bucket at the side of me, and then I bring small amounts and put it into a large EVA tub, and then I add my loose offerings to that, like my squats and hemp like. So as I can keep my main mix bait free in case I want to do something else with it somewhere else in the peg. So I put another ball on 11 metres, right on top of where I was catching. And I also dropped a ball in at 13 metres as well on my backup line.
You know, my top slept since then. Oh dear. Lovely bounces.
And I went straight back in at 11 metres, fully expecting it to just sit there, but I was proper chuffed when it went straight down the hole. And an half decent skimmer came to the net. Single pinky on a size 22 N10.
Job number 5. You'll win the match, you have. Catching you up, Dan. Catching you up. Sorry, I have to stay in.
Here's me trying to shake off a bit of debris that I've hooked. In the meantime, Martin's had a tennis ball.
I'll get a rig in here now. Is that what it was? Tennis ball.
This boat had no intentions of slowing down for the narrows, even though there was a boat already in there. paying no attention whatsoever to what was coming the other way. Just carried on talking to each other on the back of the boat, not paying any attention to what was going on around them. And he ended up having to throw it in reverse when he got to my peg. I was a bit annoyed, I must say. So he come to a dead stop in my peg. Plus put his side motors on to push himself over to my bank. So there was enough room for the other boat to get through. We need boats on the canal to keep the fish moving, keep them feeding and that, but some of them could do with being a bit more considerate. And there's another boat gone straight over the top of my 11-metre line. Just hoped it wouldn't affect it too much. So while I was waiting to see where this next boat was going to go, I just dropped the rigging without feeding just to see if there was anything about.
What chance have I got now? What? What did you say?
I made another ball of ground bait up, but never put it in straight away until I could see exactly where this boat was going to go, what line he was going to drive along. Once I was sure that he was well away from where I was fishing, I dropped the ball in to try and regroup. And while I let that settle, I went over to the 13-metre line to see if anything had been pushed up the shelf.
Oh dear.
I was quite surprised not to catch there. So I made another ball up to feed that line. And went back on the 11-metre line and hoped there was still some fish there. I ended up going through quite a bit of ground bait on the day. Not just because of the boats, but because the fish seemed to be wanting the ground bait. Every time I fed a line, well, especially the 11-metre line, once I fed a ball of ground bait, I'd go over it and catch straight away.
Shut up.
As much as some of the bouters were annoying, it never really affected the fishing, and I was able to keep fish coming. It was never solid, but it was steady fishing. Regular top-ups with a ball of ground bait managed to keep fish in the peg. Odd looks up the shelf never really produced a lot. It was worth going over there to rest the 11 metre line. And lots of the fish I was catching were very close to spawning. On the day, it seemed that 11 metre line was the perfect depth for them. Even with boats going over the top of them, it never really affected them. I managed to keep a nice steady stream of fish coming. Some of them were decent fish, some of them not so big, but it was nice. It was really nice fishing. A million miles from the last time I was on this canal 2 weeks ago on the Spring Festival. This is the first time during the match that we've had two boats come through in opposite directions and they haven't met in front of me.
I heard you. Mate, I'm coming from all ends.
They wouldn't like it.
That's the best thing.
That boater was just asking me if I was on the best peg. Tony next door's got 5 chub. Although he says them small chub, at least 3 of them were over £3 a piece. A 13 metre line still hasn't produced a lot, just a very odd fish. Starting to get the odd indication on the 13 metre line now. These aren't a bad stamp either over there. So if I can keep the 11 metre and this line ticking over, I'll have a nice finish to the match.
How's me and you, am I, Wig? Oh, that's insane.
Still having to ship out above the canal. Not ideal. After a little burst of fish on the 13 metre line, it's back down in the 11 metre line. And there's still fish there to be caught as well. Happy days. A few decent stamp fish mixed in amongst them as well. A lot of the pommies were big enough for you to swing, and then you get the odd skimmer that needed netting. Still fishing a fluoro pinky at the minute. I'll only change from this if I start missing bites or stop getting bites. Real good fishing this is.
Eh? Yeah. Still a mile off you. Still a mile off you. I know what I ate full of. I know what I ate full of. Yorkie. Say again. That was your last one. Yeah? The last one back was that one, and you know last one back was the footage.
There's about an hour and a half to go now, and I'm having a real good spell. And the boats really haven't affected it, which was good. I'm getting through quite a bit of ground bait as well. Good job I mixed plenty up. There's another one going straight over the top of where I'm catching. But like I say, it never really affected the fishing.
Can't have been set that well, mate. Can't have been set that well if you tell them.
So I'll drop another ball on the 11 metre line and go back over to 13 metre line again while this settles down.
That's the trouble.
See if there's any more fish up the shelf.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I think we just got to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. You know what I mean? I don't think it's so too early. That's the fucking trouble. I'll just fucking wait and wait and wait. You know.
I've pretty much discounted all the other areas in my peg now, and I'm just solely concentrating on my ground bait lines between 11 and 13 metres. as this is where I'm getting all the action from. I love squat fishing, absolutely adore squat fishing. Doesn't bother me if I don't catch anything else other than squat fish today. I'm having a really enjoyable day. And like I say, some of the stamp of the fish is really good.
Have you got that fish out next to you yet? What was it?
I feel that concentrating on the ground bait lines was definitely the key to this match.
Yeah, that was the one that went more over the top of it. After I brought it on. Just had a 5-ounce skinner. On the 11-metre line.
It's been much better than I anticipated, and I've had spells where I've had a run of better fish mixed in with the smaller fish. Not complaining, I've really enjoyed this. And I definitely think that ground bait was the key to the peg on the day. I'm getting towards the end of the match now, and I'm having fewer bites, but the fish are mostly skimmers now, little skimmers, which is great. There's less boats about now, and there's definitely less bites to be had. But a switch down to the squat gets me some extra fish. Just fishing a single red squat.
Another chub down. Another chub.
It was that good, the fishing, I wouldn't have minded another hour on the peg.
I think that'll just about qualify you. I would have thought so.
The bites are a bit few and far between towards the end of the match, but keeping switching between the 11-metre and the 13-metre line, I managed to keep a few fish coming.
Right, I've had 3 crossovers over the top of it, and every time I've had a crossover, I've gone one over the top. The last day,
Switching down to a squat hook bait towards the end of the match was definitely the right way to go, because it got me a few extra bites where I was struggling to catch anything on the pinky. And the stamp of some of the fish was just as good, if not better, on the squat than it was on the pinky at times. Maybe I should have tried the squat a bit earlier. Who knows?
I'm not sure. Not really. Eh? No, I'll fold it back. I'll fold it back to the... No, 5 inch skinner.
This is the last fish of the day.
Yeah, what's all about the...
Another little skimmer. Well, another nice little skimmer. Great end to a great day. Really enjoyed this match. Although it was awkward with the shipping and everything. The odd bouter was a bit of a nuisance, but all in all, a great day out. When the scales turned up, Tony on the MPEG weighed £17, which got him second overall in the match. The match was won by Lee Woodhouse. He had £23.5 off the MPEG out the bay. My fish went £7 3 ounces, which got me the defaulted section win, as the other side of the narrows hadn't fished so well. So happy days. Cracking days fishing. I finished 10th overall out of the 65, something like that was fishing it. And you needed over £5 to make the top 20. So the venue fished amazing. So that's it. One more qualifier to fish to make myself eligible for the final.
Yeah. It's a good job you were on your peg.
And the finals in August. So look forward to that. Now, if you enjoyed watching this and you'd like to see more, please give it a thumbs up and please subscribe, and you won't miss any future videos. And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.